Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to the NUFC Takeover talk. And tonight we'll have an extra guest. We've got Steve Hasty, who's been quite prominent over the years as a supporter with the Fans Forum. And of course, we've got the Geordie dentist, Neil Mitchell. Hi, lads. You okay?
Fine, lads.
Hi, no bother.
Good stuff. Okay, we'll get straight to the comments. Anyone's got any questions or anything that they want us to debate for the next hour, give us a shout. We've got 1 hour to talk over the takeover. Danielle Lowther straight on. She says, right, lads, I'm here for takeover therapy. There is a no negative zone. My favourite interview of the week, this. Ali Khan says, takeover, what is going on? Gary Finnegan says, can't wait for this. Just wish we had some progress on the takeover front. But the first question we've got from Darren Tannock. He says, do you think today's interview with the Premier League guy, Richard Masters, made it more or less likely that we will see an announcement in the coming days? So, Neil, I'll leave that to you first.
Well, I said on Twitter just before, for me, it's the answer he should have gave the other day to Dan Roan. That's exactly what he should have said to Dan Roan the other day. He can't talk about it. He shouldn't talk about it. It was a lot of words that mean nothing. Absolutely nothing. He said nothing of substance and nothing that he should have said that would get him into bother. I'm quite sure after that interview with Dan Roan, he'd had his butt kicked off somebody in the media team in the Premier League because he said far too much about subjects that he shouldn't talk about. And if I was Amanda Staveley, I'd have a copy of that interview tucked away very nicely somewhere for future use, because that wasn't fair. It wasn't fair at Dan Roan to throw the curveball, but that's what journalists do sometimes. But he handled it very poorly. That was how he should have answered it. And it really doesn't tell you anything. For me, does it make an announcement any more likely? Well, no, it'll still come when it comes. The time frame that I was given was from last Friday till June the 1st. Well, we're still a few days off June the 1st, last time I checked. So, you know, it's just everybody should just not lose their shit over it. Just stay calm, because it really doesn't tell you anything.
Steve, same to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we listened to him last week, I think, you know, the whole of the city just went into meltdown, didn't it? You know, it didn't do any of us any good. It certainly didn't. You know, I mean, Twitter was on meltdown, Facebook was on meltdown, everybody was. You know, and it sets up this sort of, you know, again, just resurrecting the same old thing, the panic, the paranoia. And he spoke too much, as Neil said. Whether he's had his knuckles wrapped or whether he's learned by it, who knows? But, you know, things are still moving. I think that's all we can really say. We know that things are still moving with it, because if it wasn't moving, I think, you know, it would literally be all over the press that this is a massive, massive issue, and I don't think it is. I've watched you two guys over the last fortnight, 3 weeks, and you've been spot on every time. And you know, I couldn't agree more with what you've come out with.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I just think, like Tom Lynch has just said there, he said Masters had to play it absolutely straight. They legally can't say anything until it's done. And I think that's why I've made the issue today about just not replying to people on Twitter, because unfortunately, although the majority of people on there are of sound mind and are willing to have a debate, unfortunately, there's a few people out there who, you know, ask you a question, you give them an answer, and then they're determined to tell you that you're wrong. Well, you know, I'm afraid that, you know, I'm not wrong. I know what I'm talking about, and you know, I'm not gonna jeopardize any trust I've got on either side of the deal by revealing my source just because people ask us to. And it just becomes a little bit repetitive, unfortunately. And you know, I've switched off my inboxes to strangers. I've still allowed some people in inboxes, but I can be, you know, I think most of us can do without the negativity in our lives, especially at the time when we're all on lockdown, you know, and life isn't what life normally is. So for me, I'm not being ignorant of people, but you know, I just feel that it's, you know, time's come to just say, look, you know, if you don't believe us, fair enough. You know, I'm sure that you'll be proved right in the future, and you know, let's move on. But you know, nobody can say anything. We've repeated the same stuff over and over again. Nobody can say anything. There's signed NDAs on both sides. You've got to be positive, and the reason you've got to be positive is Mike Ashley hasn't come out and said this deal's not happening. These people are tire kickers. It's, you know, there's reasons to be positive, and that's the reason that we're all positive. It's you know, it is a bit like Groundhog Day, and I knew it would be, but you know, we've just got to bide our time. And as you say, hopefully, you know, June the 1st is a benchmark. You know, the end of April for me was a benchmark. We could be in a position where the deal's actually agreed and signed off and the money's being transferred, but then the Saudis might choose not to announce it because it doesn't fit in with what they want to do. So, we could end up with another 2, 3, 4 weeks. Who knows? But you look at things and you think Project Restart, 17th of June, you would imagine the new owners will want to be in place by then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you say, we've got games being arranged. We had the financial announcement today, and even then, the club didn't make any, didn't put anyone up to speak because they just know that the questions are going to be thrown at them that are on a topic that they just can't talk about. So it's literally just sort of push away. Quite agree. 17th, that's the first game that we're gonna see. Big one, isn't it? Aston Villa. I think that's the first game that we're gonna be watching. But then obviously, we're then getting the nitty gritty around about the 20th, and we'll start to see some decent football, hopefully. And let's just see how that pans out, But whether we'll have new owners by the 17th, like everybody else, I'm praying that we do.
Anthony Clennell says, another article's come out in the last 30 minutes again with a negative exclusive. Are the Premier League allowing this to be played out within the media? Now, Mitch, you and I were talking about this before we went on air. I hadn't really seen the article. It was something to do with Ziegler, wasn't it? And Saudi playing, replaying FA Cup games.
Yeah, apparently there's a warning letter going to some Saudi station from the FA because they've been showing Newcastle FA Cup games. Possibly without permission. It doesn't look good. I think it's something like, however, it's sort of become Letter Friday, hasn't it? There's what's the letter about this week? I'm tainted when it comes to Ziegler as well because I know he's close to the Qatari bid for Leeds United. So, do we have a little bit more agenda at play there? Possibly, but if that's coming from the FA, then it shouldn't be. But at the same time, it's the FA and it's about FA Cup games. That's nothing to do with the Premier League and nothing to do with the Premier League fit and proper test. So it shouldn't affect anything. It's just more the problem with the time frame as it drags on. I get the point being made that are they allowing it to be played out in the media? Well, no, but what they're allowing is opportunity for parties with an interest to cause mischief to play it out in the media, and that's it. You've got to hold our hands up. Understand that the COVID and restart and all of that's been exceptionally important, and no doubt has slowed everything right down.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a time where the Premier League, for their own credibility, has to draw that line in the sand and say, right, enough's enough. Let's stop all this shenanigans now.
Yeah, 100%. Steve, same thoughts?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, like you say, the way that it's been dragged out, everybody has an agenda. Everybody has something to play. Everybody wants to say something at the moment. The FA, that's the only thing they've got left, isn't it? The FA Cup. They don't get involved in the FL stuff. They've ruined the lower league situation. And now they're at the point where, let's throw something else into the mix. And let's face it, we're cannon fodder, aren't we? We're there to be knocked at. As supporters, they know that we'll eat up every single word that gets said. We'll analyse it. You guys have gone on for weeks about how Newcastle fans analyse everything that's said about a particular deal or how a deal is structured, or how famous we are for investigating and digging and following aeroplanes, and you name it, we've done it. There's fans out there. It's been brilliant. I mean, it's fantastic in one respect, but it's also been absolutely exhausting. I've got pals, who are all going, I've just had enough of this. I just want it over. I just want a decision to be made. And I think if the truth be known, that's what we're all wanting. We want a decision to be made. The decision we want, obviously, is the positive decision that everything's fine, because that's what we've been led to believe everything is. And all the flack that's flying around, all the jip that's there, and all that type of thing. It's just there as a distraction. And yes, we've been held up by COVID, and we've now got the restart. And let's hope that we're going to restart with a new Newcastle United, because that's what we want. We've got the league to finish off. We've got the cup coming up. Potentially quarter-final, semi-final, and final. Who knows where we can get to? We just want this sorted, and we want Ashley gone. We want St James's Park to look like it used to do. We want the fans all behind it. We want everyone pulling together. And we want that party, don't we? We don't want the party on the streets, but we want the party in the houses to make sure that, we've got the cans and we're all cracking them open. We're opening them for the right reasons.
Well, at least 6 of us can get together, and probably 7 if you live with Dominic Cummins. Mark Dalton says, right, lads, not bad accounts being published today. Thoughts, please? 30, well, just short of £35 million profit, which is double what we made the previous year. I'm always a bit dubious about the accounts that get filed at Newcastle United. I've got to be perfectly honest, Neil, but what's your take on that? And my first thoughts were, well, that's great because there's money to spend. And there's a bit extra to spend for Amanda and co once they get their feet under the table.
Well, from my point of view, I look at that and I think that means we can spend before we get additional income and before we can balance it. I think we can spend something like 72, 73 million. Mm-hmm. And still be within FFP. And it's one of the ironies of the Mike Ashley austerity years is that actually, for this takeover happening, it leaves him in a really strong position. It always was going to do that because he's ran within what means, because he hasn't put anything in unless he's got relegated. Because that's the only time he's put anything in, and he still wants it back, by the way, because it was a non-interest bearing loan. But because it's also a non-interest bearing loan, that also stands in good stead under FFP. It's one of the biggest ironies of the lot, is that the way he's ran it with a takeover happening actually helps the incoming owner significantly. You hate giving credit, but you've got to give credit where it's due. That's what I think when I see those accounts. That's my first thought. Curious date to publish them as well, because I think they still had another 2 or 3 weeks on the extension that they were given, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, it's definitely a curious date and might tie in nicely with your 1st of June date. We'll see. Steve, I mean, you've had time to have a look and absorb those figures. What was your take on it?
I mean, obviously, as Neil said, we talk about the profit, we talk about the money that's available. What surprised me was the commercial aspect and how low it was, and there was actually reduction up to that for that particular year. I mean, I know that the Chronicle had a big line that 12 months, the accounts out, and the last 12 months. Well, it's not 12 months at all. It's at least 18 months old, the data that's come through. But to see the fact that our commercial activity in the Premier League as a top club is so low, and that surprises me, especially when we've seen that apparently Sports Direct or the Fraser Group are now paying for that whole commercial. Whether it did happen in that particular year, I know it's mentioned in the books, it's mentioned in the accounts rather, but whether it actually transpired into very much cash, it couldn't have been that much. Bearing in mind that the commercial activity dropped, which I found very, very, very surprising. I know there was an increase as well in the amount of money that we're spending on wages, which again was a surprise. But I think it's the commercial activity, and I think what's key about the commercial aspect is how the commercial aspect of that football club has been shocking, absolutely shocking. I mean, the fact that a football club in the Premier League, the top league in Britain and in the world, has got a football club getting £26 million in commercial income. And I've sat at fans forums over the years and I've listened when the accounts have come out, and I've listened to what's been said, and I've heard the excuses, and I've heard the rationale and the reasoning behind it. We've gone from 2008 where we've had crashes. We've gone through 2014 when the forum started, where they talked about the accounts and talked about how difficult it is in the Northeast, and that difficulty in the Northeast has rolled through time and time and time again. And yet we've seen other football clubs all around the country where the commercial activity has absolutely skyrocketed, and it's though we're not really being bothered. And I think there's one little snippet that said that the commercial activity was because we didn't have Ed Sheeran concert the following year, and stuff like that. And you think, and what the hell? This is what Amanda and this is what PCP and this is what PIF will be looking at, and they'll be going, that's shocking. That's absolutely shocking. This is where we know that this football club can turn around. And Neil, you talk about the financial fair play, and we can get commercial activity. That 70 odd million that you're talking about can very, very quickly turn into 150 million plus when we start to really extrapolate it and really put the effort in with a proper commercial team that know what they're doing, who can go out and can get international companies and national companies and not hanging on the backbone of some either regional company or basically selling off the commercial activity to all and sundry for a song because we've got the money in straight.
Yeah, no, good answer.
You're absolutely right, Steve, as well. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things. If you look at what Man City had their butts kicked for, we don't have to do anything like that. We just have to turn that in the commercial income into something within the norm for the Premier League. And suddenly we're not spending 70 million, we're spending 140 million. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. Exciting times. Cam Smith says, if we were to win the FA Cup, could it open bigger and better brand deals for the new owners with us having place in Europe? And would it attract a different calibre of players? Good question, Cam. Neil?
Very good question, Cam. Well, it would be the most Newcastle thing to do, to break wet duck when none of us can actually go and be there, wouldn't it? That would be, show me the most Newcastle thing to do. Yes, exposure. I think brand deals, once you get into European competition, it opens your scope to get better deals and bigger deals. But I think that scope's almost not necessary with the involvement of PIF, because they'll be looking globally from day one. Yeah. When I look at what brand opportunities we looked at when Steve and I sat with Midhat at BZG, and we put some of the plans together to try and get them back in the game earlier this year. Some of the advertising opportunities we were talking with them, they weren't hard to think about, they weren't hard to find, and they were very easy to do in this region. PIF have got exactly the same opportunity and more. Globally, loads of opportunity. The FA Cup's a funny one with it getting you into the second tier European competition, because the competition everybody seems to really not want to be in, where you're playing on Thursdays and it messes with your entire week. So would it help attract a different caliber player? Yes, it always will. But again, I don't think that'll be a bit of an issue the minute PIF are involved. The minute they're saying, come play with us, I don't think Newcastle will seem so far from London anymore.
Yeah, good point, Steve. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, the glory of the FA Cup, and I don't think people realise how big the FA Cup is. And I know that the Champions League is the sort of pinnacle of what players are looking to play in, and that type of thing. But the FA Cup's something special on Tyneside. It's something special for a lot of football clubs, and it's something special worldwide. It still has that massive appeal. The whole day, the atmosphere. The whole build up to the FA Cup, which I suppose some of the TV companies have sort of not really exploited in the way that we used to back in the 70s, 80s, and even in the 90s. But the FA Cup with Newcastle United in it, in a final, I think you'd see a totally different sort of show if that happened on whether it was on ITV or Sky or whatever, because we are a big pull when it comes to the FA Cup. 6 times winners. Never won it. I mean, we've all been there. We were there in the 90s, weren't we? When we lost both games. We're there at the semi-final against Chelsea. We're there at the semi-final against Man United at Cardiff. We know what it's like. We know the excitement. We know the buzz that it brought around the city. But we also know that worldwide, the fans of Newcastle United, that big day that we could have at Wembley for the cup final. And to win the cup final as well would be, it would be absolutely fantastic. And that, I remember my dad going in 74 and the excitement. He was there in 55 as well. And what it meant to him, what the FA Cup, we always talk about the FA Cup. We never talk about winning the league. All he knew was that we had a football team that could win the FA Cup or could get into cup finals and stuff like that. And I remember when I went in the 90s to those 2 cup finals, and the excitement and the buzz. And my pals, we still talk about it now. We still talk about the night before. We still talk about the night after. We still talk about the game, although we're not that much. We talk about various players who didn't turn up and this type of thing. But it's still there in our memory bank. And to actually do it and win it would be For me. It's everything that the FA Cup,
Yeah, 100%. Pete Wright asks another good question. He says, everyone agree that everything that Ashley hasn't done, for example, refunds, furlough, season ticket direct debits, is all because Newcastle United is now in situ, so he can't do anything with it, even if he wanted to. So, do you think that's a case? That's probably the reason he hasn't done anything, because it's not his club anymore.
Very entirely possible that everything's frozen because they're in the process of doing the takeover. That would be one way to explain it. It would also tally with the comment that I made last week that I got from one of the journalists back in the Northeast, who basically said that the word from them was that Ashley didn't want to do anything because he washed his hands of the club. It wasn't his club anymore. It's a hot potato he doesn't want to handle. He probably can't handle. That's probably a fair point. But he won't want to anyway. So he just shovel passes it to the new owners and says, right, get on with it. But equally, as we keep talking about, it creates another set of easy wins for the new owner. These aren't problems. They're actually opportunities.
Yeah.
They're opportunities to solidify that honeymoon period. When they come in, they're going to have a long honeymoon period anyway. I think anybody buying would have a long honeymoon period after that 13 years with Ashley. But if you can garner as much trust and respect from the fan base as possible in genuine ways during that time, oh my, you've got a force on your hands. And that's all he's doing. He's just leaving them opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. Danielle Lowther says, do you think the issue of refunds of fans' tickets is being left to the lovely Amanda? Yes, Danielle, that's what we do think. I think it's an easy win, as Neil says. Brian Senior says, what do you think of the new piracy concerns reported by the Times today? In case you haven't seen it, the report in the FA wrote a letter about the Saudis showing the FA Cup games. Yeah, we talked about that at the start, Brian, which you might not have seen if you didn't join the broadcast early enough. But yeah, in essence, we don't think it's anything major at all. Dan Milne says, will Matty Longstaff still be at the club with his contract expiring, or can he leave while games are still being played? Now, this is an interesting one because we spoke about this with Michael Chopra last night. Obviously, who's been a football agent himself and being well aware of these things. And he said that he potentially could have even signed a free contract with somebody in January, which he thinks he didn't. He wants to stay at the club, so it looks fairly likely that Matty Longstaff will wait until the new owners come in before deciding what he wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, and we all hope that's the case, don't we? Because players like Matty Longstaff, young lads who have come through, that's what we want to see. We want to see that blend of local lads who are good footballers, who can take a game and play well. We want to see them come through. I think timing has been really bad. I think that the fact that we've had the lockdown, we've had all those issues coinciding. Let's face it, the deal should have been sorted long ago, and I just wonder what was going through the mind of the football club at that particular time when they gave offers to Matty that Matty and his people felt as though wasn't correct, because Matty is a great talent. No two words for it. And as I say, that's what we want. We want to see players like Matty involved in Newcastle United. I honestly think the timing's been bad. I think that Matty is now probably sensibly waiting, as you say, for the new owners to come in. Perhaps he, I think that the Premier League's allowing contracts to roll on, so he's probably on a week to week, I don't know, or month to month, how the actual situation is with players who come to the end of contracts. I know that they're certainly expecting those contracts to still be honoured. Right the way up until the final game of the season, and then probably a month after, because I think they're now talking about the next season not starting until something like the 12th or the 19th of September. So the players are still going to get a bit of a break when this season ends. So at that point, that's when you would expect, say, that line in the sand to be drawn in terms of I'm a free agent. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Matty then can't be still in negotiation with the owners when they come in, or have it sorted before that. Let's just pray that it does happen, because I want Matty Longstaff to stay at Newcastle United, and I think lots of other Newcastle fans do as well.
Yeah, Dale Ode says, would there ever be a scenario it has been completed, all of the tests by the Premier League, but they want to drag it out to look more responsible with it being such a delicate subject? Yeah, I mean, I think that's possible. I mean, I've got to be honest, I was a bit knocked at Brian Swanson's line of questioning with Masters. I mean, why did he start that particular part of the interview with there's a lot of objections to that? You know, he's an ex-Tyne Tees reporter as well, you know. It was just seemed a bit strange, but I mean it's dragged on for a long time. I think if it was announced tomorrow, we've certainly appeared to give it more than enough, delicate consideration. Wouldn't you agree, Neil?
I'd agree entirely, and I think the longer it drags on past into next week, they start to lose credibility as a body in an organisation, because there's just, what is that to stop you now? Nothing. You've allegedly sorted your COVID and your Project Restart. You've allegedly sorted everything out with the clubs, bar this weird some games need to be moved because it's anyway. But that's another question. They've pretty much they've ran out of excuses as to why it isn't being seen through now. I actually think things were happening concurrently to a point, and then past that point, COVID became more important. And that might explain why there's so much positivity still at this side. You know, I've reached out to people today and been told exactly what I was told last Friday, that nothing's changed. Everybody's excited. Everybody's up for it. Everybody's still ready to go and expect to go. So I'm wondering if things were running concurrently to a point where COVID had to take and Restart had to take priority. Because the longer it drags on, they're the body that's going to look like with egg on their face, because it's starting to get a little bit beyond the pale now. To deliberately drag it on, to make it look like they've done everything thoroughly. If they've done that, that's a dangerous game to play as well, because the Premier League and the FA are notorious for finding leaks somewhere, and that would come out. And what would that make that body? You know, that really would make a sham of the body as well. So I don't think they're doing it deliberately, but I think it's time now, lads. You know, away.
Steve, what about that question there from Graham Dougal with regards refunds, season ticket renewals? Do you think this puts any pressure on the Premier League to make their decision regarding the takeover? And does there become a time when it becomes an issue? And how does it then get sorted?
I don't think it's an issue for the Premier League. It's certainly an issue for Newcastle United. You know, it's going to be very, very embarrassing if we're in a situation where we've got games being played at St James's Park with an empty ground, and yet we've all paid for to watch that game. You know, so that's the nub of it. So at some point in time, somebody's going to have to take the bull by the horns and say, "You're getting your money back, lads, and this is it," or you'll get your money back at a certain point in time. And I think that's why it's got to be sorted before the 20th of June when we play our first game. I haven't seen the fixture, so I don't know whether we're going to be at home on the 20th of June or away on the 20th of June, or whether we're going to be playing
Sheffield United at home, I think, mate.
Is that what it is? Is that going to be?
I think so.
Is that going to be here? Is it going to be at Hampden Park? Is it going to be at Hillsborough?
Our games are going to be at St James's. There's 6 games being listed as games which are potentially going to have to be played at neutral grounds.
Yeah.
One of which is Newcastle against Man City, or Man City versus Newcastle. I'm not sure why on earth that needs to be moved, but you know, it's maybe it's because of the title battle or something. I've got no idea.
Something to do with what I read today. It's actually police advice that they want these games moved, and I don't know what I've not had time today because I've been dealing with real world shit today to look at what the implication of that is. You know,
it's a strange one.
Why the police want it done?
Yeah, it's a strange one.
I mean, I can understand.
Getting back to the question,
I can understand them wanting to move Liverpool Everton.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on, Steve.
I was going to say, getting back to the question, I mean, does it put pressure on the Premier League? No. Premier League couldn't care less the fact that Newcastle United haven't paid the season ticket money back. But it certainly puts pressure on Newcastle United from their fans, which have been under pressure anyway. And it puts pressure on the new owners when it comes in. And I think there's one thing we've got to remember, that there's some really good people work up at St James's Park. You know, there's some lads and lasses working that ticket office who work their socks off. You know, they do fantastic work, and they're all furloughed. So there's nobody there that could even sort the situation out at the moment. But I'm sure there's a plan. There has to be a plan, and I think it's going to be difficult when people do come in to be able to make those refunds straight away. But there's certainly got to be a message put out there that it's being taken forward and it's going to happen. And that's, you know, at the end of that, that's probably all that Newcastle United as a football club should need to say. You'll get your money back. It's going to happen. Don't think it's gonna not happen, or it's gonna be left and it's gonna be tagged on or whatever. You'll get your money back. So that's the message that they should be saying, and it should be coming out. Even in the scenario of what's happening in the ether of the takeover, I would have expected someone at least have the guts to, you know, take the bull by the horns and say something like that. You know, lads, I can't do anything, lasses, I can't do anything at the minute, but it will be sorted. That's all it needs. And that would put a lot of people, and hopefully it would anyway. But as far as the Premier League, no. You know,
it would remove some of the negativity as well. It would remove some of that creeping negativity is because of inaction. And so people are now, some of the people who are openly saying, well, I was 100%, now I'm 80%, and every day by day I'm getting less. Part of that is things like this. It just erodes and it niggles and it nags and it makes people doubt. And I get it and I totally understand it. But they might actually be in a position where nobody can say anything, again, because they're in the middle of this process or towards the end of this process. And so it's an absolutely ridiculous situation. The Premier League patently don't give a hoot about it because they would be in a position to allow somebody to say something, even if it was an anonymous, unnamed source from Newcastle United says, you will get your money back. It doesn't have to be Mike Ashley says, it doesn't have to be Amanda Staveley says.
It could be Lee Marshall. He could put something out on behalf of the club, you know.
Anybody, as long as it was an official from Newcastle United Football Club says ... That's all it needs.
Yeah, that's all it needs. But
and
of course,
it's within the Premier League's hands to say, go ahead and do that. And
is it on a computer though, or is it on big long bits of paper written in pencil? God only knows what kind of state things are at our football club.
But bearing in mind the FA seems to still use faxes for transfers, God knows how it's done.
Right, Bad Blood podcast, changing direction a little bit. He says, do you think the club will look to bring in young English players at the start of the new owner's reign, or do you think they'll go straight for the big names? Mitch?
Well, I've said before that the nature of Arab football support is they like names, they follow names. So I think we'll have names, we'll have signings made, call them marquee signings if you will, or strategic signings if it's somebody from this region that they want to get on board or whatever. If they're smart, there'll be a mix. There'll be a mix of all sorts. We want players who are experienced and who better the squad, who know what the Premier League's all about. And they'll want good young talent. And given this, what we've seen come through and what we're seeing come through the academy at the minute, Longstaff's aside, what is there? And so if you want to improve that, you may have to buy them and bring them in. And if anybody's smart about it, that's the kind of thing they'll be looking to do. It's almost like looking at a share portfolio and what are you going to have. And you want a good mix. You want a mix of those big names, the solid citizens, and the exciting young new talent. And if they're British, all the better for me. I think also to satisfy various rules these days, you need a number of them. So why not?
Yeah, Steve, do you think we'll have a marquee signing? Do you think we'll go down the Man City route when Manzua walked in and signed Robinho? Do you think that's what we'll do, or do you think we'll have a few off the belt? What's your thoughts?
I think it depends on who's the manager, to be perfectly honest. I think if it was Rafa, for example, I think Rafa will be looking at a project and he'd be looking at particular areas of the squad that he wanted to strengthen, and he would want to be doing it gradually and want to do it over a period of time. I think Pochettino, perhaps he might be more the sort of guy who would want a couple of big names straight in, possibly from Spain or from the continent that he's aware of, or possibly people that he's worked with before. I think if it's Bruce, which I don't think it will be, by the way. But I think if it's Bruce, it might be slightly different. It might be more looking for English talent, because there is, I think the personalities of the managers and who we get in will say an awful lot for what the project is, what it is we're trying to develop. Yes, the owners will want a marquee of some description. I don't think it necessarily has to be a foreign buyer, a foreign player rather. I think there's always room for English talent, British talent coming through. There's some real exciting young players out there at other clubs that we could maybe pick up. It's just an exciting time for Newcastle United. I think, when it does go through, to see the caliber of player that we're then not just linked with, but actually coming in. I'm not bothered either way, whether we go for a Man City style Robinho, and we nab him because he was going to go somewhere else, and we give him a ticket with a different title on the aeroplane, or whether we go for a young, exciting bit of British talent who's already experienced in the Premier League, because it depends where we're heading. Are we looking at a manager that's going to take us in 2-3 years? And gradually build us up, which is probably what most fans would be looking for, because you need that sort of continuity going through. Let's just see. Will Pochettino bring Harry Kane, as we saw in the paper today? That was one of the things. But then you've got some really, really good, exciting players that when we move away from that sort of fantasy football, that will be available. Probably players that we've already been linked with in the past who are British. So let's just see.
We'll see. It'll be interesting to see if Rafa does come back, whether he packs Rondon in his case anyway. Ferry Hill Mag says, don't want it to be announced tomorrow. I'm on nights. Wait till Monday. We'll try our best, Paulie. Steve Hutchinson says, are you having a live Moretti celebration, Steve, when the takeover gets announced? Are you having a Moretti celebration, Steve, if it gets announced?
I'm drinking Heineken at the minute, actually.
You're drinking Heineken.
I'll move to Moretti if he's paying.
Mark Dalton says, I agree with Steve. Swanson's an ex-Time Tees broadcaster, and he knows what the fans are like, and he starts his question on the negative. No other club with NDAs signed would have had it played out like we have. Got to agree, Mark. Completely agree with you. It's embarrassing the national media are only focusing on the negatives as a smokescreen for their real agenda. I haven't seen any reports of the positives it will bring. Nikos, thanks for your comments. Josh says, when thinking about the shell of a club Mike Ashley is leaving behind, can we be too sentimental when talking about people for roles, i.e. club legends? The club needs best in class to be competitive again. That's an interesting point, Josh. Neil, we've seen a lot of ex-legends on the interviews that I've been doing over the last few weeks, talking about, they would think about it, depends what role was offered, etc. But I suppose he's right, Josh. They have to be the right man for the job. Yes. There's no room for sentimentality in football.
I think, again, it's about the blend. I think would be rules for, I hesitate to say Geordies, not just Geordies, but people who are Geordie by birth or Geordie by adoption.
Yeah.
Whether they're from the Northeast or not, whether they've got that connection to this, who know what the club's about, who know the nuance and the subtleties of that club city community that could help, that one player who might turn out like Jermaine Jenis and not like the Goldfish Bowl feel that he talked about, which I kind of understand. But I think I understand it more now I'm out of the region, actually. And so you want people around who can put an arm around a player like that and get the best out of them off the pitch as well as on the pitch, because the two things go hand in hand. So I think you need people who've got that connection to the culture and the community and the history. But are they the best people to have in pivotal roles? Well, only if they're the best person for that role. If the best person for that role in that setup, for example, if it's Rafa back, he'll have a definite idea of who he wants in his backroom team and in his medical team and his sports science team, etc., etc. And because Rafa has this project idea, he'll probably have people pinhole all the way down through every area. Will they all be club legends? No. In fact, I would guess very few of them would be. Same with Pochettino. He would have to fit in around whatever structure they've got in mind. If he was appointed, would there be? But I think there's certainly roles that people can have that enhance and complement and add something different to what the main men have if they're not necessarily the best for the job. What Josh says is right, absolutely right. You've got to have the best people in the best roles. Doesn't matter whether they're black and white, whatever. If they're the best person for that role and the manager wants them or the director of football wants them, however structured we've got, that's the way it's got to go. But I think we need to find a way to also retain that connection to history. And some of these guys, some of the guys you have on who speak exceptionally well, and there's people beyond that you get in even on an ad hoc basis to sit people down. Imagine if somebody could have shaped Niall Ranger when he was that raw talent who was streets ahead of Andy Carroll at the same time. Streets ahead of him. I remember him coming on for Carroll at a friendly at Blythe, and where Carroll had laboured, he tore Blythe to bits for 20 minutes. And okay, he probably wasn't shapeable, but there'll be another one somewhere in the mix who might respond well to somebody like Lee Clark pulling one side and saying, "How are you, son? I'm going to have a chat with you." And I think you need a mix of that because we've lost a little bit of that somewhere along the way. Again, that's the effect of the Ashley years for me. And so, if they're the best people for the job, then happy days. But if there's other guys you could fit in around the edges of that, I think I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah. It's the reconnect that I'm looking for. I want that ability for ex-players and legends, whatever you want to call them, to be able to reconnect with the football club again, because we know on many occasions where that reconnection has been cut, that connection has been cut, and I want that back because those guys have the passion. I mean, we've been to talk-ins. I've been to talk-ins with you, Steve, that you've run, and the passion that you hear from ex-players, whether it's from the 80s, whether it's from the 90s, whether it's from the 70s, even the guys at the 60s that we've had, there's still this passion, this love affair with Newcastle United that has just absorbed them, whether they're from the region or not from the region. And they still come up years and years later and they talk about what it meant to play for Newcastle United. And that's the reconnect that I want to see first. Then you talk about players in key roles or people in key roles or legends in key roles. There are dozens of roles that can be played out among the fans, played out among, with the skills that they've got within football itself, within proper roles within a football club, or just being there as ambassadors. There's a whole multitude of things that ex-players and legends can get involved in. But the structure's got to be there. But we know that those guys have got the love for it. So, let's hope it can be nurtured. Let's hope it can be developed and it can be cultured. And let's hope in, 15 years' time, we've got players who are in the current squad that will welcome them back to talk-ins. I mean, we've mentioned it a few times, haven't we, Steve, about certain players in our squad at the moment. Would you be out of a job because you'd not be able to run talk-ins with them because none of us will turn up?
Exactly. I mean, it'd be a dying business if we continued in this vein. I'm telling you now, nobody be able to run a talk-in with some of the rubbish we've seen over the last 10 Ashley years.
Yeah.
Paul Jackson says, don't you think Masters has been very quiet on this? That makes me think they won't allow this takeover. Been a fan for 40 plus years. Not really, Paul. I think we discussed that a little bit earlier on as well. He's not allowed to say anything because of NDAs, and politically he's not allowed to say anything, about it. He can't genuinely come out and say these things. Somebody also asked about the background noise. That's how Mitch is sitting on his veranda in a 39-degree heat, and he's got Formula One going past his house. I think that's what it is.
No, I tell you what it is. Mustangs. There's one of the Mustang. It's one of the Mustang clubs here. They've got 5-litre Mustangs going past every 5 minutes. It's hilarious.
Paul Volk
kind of get used to it.
Paul Volk says Mitch is knocking back the cans. Everyone seems to think it's a good sign. And Al G says he's delighted that you've finally got a proper black and white shirt on. He says it's about time because obviously the last couple of weeks you've had your Juventus tops on and things.
And no sponsor. Aha.
No sponsor. Good lad. Neil Straker says, hi guys, when it's confirmed, who do you think will announce it? It's going to be the buyer side first, isn't it? Followed by a Mike Ashley statement. Yeah.
You'd have thought so.
You'd imagine. I don't even think Mike Ashley will make a statement.
No, you don't. I think he's too much of a narcissist not. And if the rumour's true that he wanted to come out and say something prior to this once the news broke at company's house, there seemed to be a strong indication that he did want to say something. So I wouldn't be surprised. But watching the news again yesterday, he's got his hands full because this Debenhams thing's an absolute nightmare for him. He's got 30% shareholding in Debenhams. And obviously the receivers are going to go in. It looks like that business is going to go bump, and he's trying his best to try and sort that out. And he just has major problems at the moment, Mike Ashley, doesn't he?
I think he has problems right across the high street, doesn't he? I think the Debenhams situation was the fact that he lost his 30 million, and now Debenhams, it was completely restructured, and now it's going down the pan again. And he's probably trying to fight a losing battle on that one, because I think he lost his money, and he's now trying to see if he can claw back from someone who feels as though that he can twist them. He's got problems right across, but everybody else has problems on the high street, don't they? In terms of, you wouldn't put it past Ashley to want to, like you say, want to be the man who says, right, I've got rid of you, you're gone, thanks very much, and goodbye. But he's also the sort of bloke who, could well just turn around and not say a single word and never, ever utter anything about Newcastle United again. And you know what? Whether it's that, or whether it's the format or the latter, I'm not really that bothered. As long as an announcement's made by someone in the right manner, and that we can see Neil starting to buy his own cans, that would be something special.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. I think you're right. A couple of questions there. Spenny Mag and Ferry Hill Mag's question to everybody: if you had the choice, lads, Rafa or Pochettino, who would it be? Steve, you first.
Rafa.
Neil?
I love being spoilt for choice. It's a bit like asking me, would I like to get into this oil bath with Kylie Minogue or this oil bath with Dieter Bontes? Which one? Just put me in one. That's fine. That would just suit me just fine.
I'm obviously going to say Rafa. I'm obviously going to be biased, but like you, if it wasn't Rafa and it was Pochettino, I'm not going to be crying into my beer. So
we talked about this the other week.
It's great to be in this position.
For me, it depends on what they want. Are they talking about a genuine long-term project where you build a platform and spring from it? And the person to do that's Rafa. He comes pre-packaged, pre-bundled, gift-wrapped. Thank you very much. Take it. Do you want to go for it and produce something potentially crackers from day one? The answer for that might be Poch. To be spoiled for choice like that, after the 13 years we've had, that genuinely, to me, it doesn't matter. There's part of me would like to go for the spectacular, but I totally see the sense of something pre-packaged that gives you that platform and potentially could give you also a backroom, boot room style succession plan, etc. That actually kind of, the more I think about it and the more I've thought about it over the last few weeks, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I look back and I think of the time when I think was it Jim Smith who got rid of him, who brought Ardiles in, and you looked at Ardiles and you thought, he'd won everything. He'd World Cup winner, and we played some really good football. And he was left with, he had nothing, and yet he brought all those young players through, and he was trying to build something, with Clark and Elliott and Watson and all that type of thing, and he was building something up, and the results just weren't coming for him. And then, they turned around and all of a sudden it was Keegan back with, after 8 years, and you're going, Keegan, whatever, and it's like, you'd have been happy if they'd given Ardiles at the time the money and the ability to go out and be able to blend that team with something special, but he never had that. And then you got Keegan coming in, and Keegan with the flashness and the manner in which he was then able to take the bull by the horns and turn Newcastle into something really special and really get the going again. It's a bit like that, isn't it? You're caught between a rock and a hard place when you look at those two particular managers, and we are gifted. We are going to be very lucky if those are the two choices that we've got. Well, it's not our choice, but if they're the two choices that the new owners have, and they're the two names at the top of it, and we'll interview and know where they're going to go from. Like you say, exciting football. People have a go at Rafa, and they talk about the boring football and stuff like that. Rafa was a means to an end, and the way that he set a team out, and he set a team out always looking 3, 4, 5 games ahead. And I was lucky enough to be taken in and meet Rafa on a couple of occasions with you, Steve, and to watch him dissect the game at the end, sitting in his room, where he would get the potato wedges out, and he would show you how a match went in 3 dimensions. And he's got potato wedges stuck in his finger, trying to explain to you and me what a back 4 compared to a back 3 should be, and how Mbemba was pushing on too far towards the index finger rather than the little finger and stuff like that. Fascinating, because he's absorbed. And he will go back to talking about, we talk about special people, and we talk about the heroes, and we talk about the legends. We were with Malcolm, and he told Malcolm stuff about Malcolm's career that even Malcolm couldn't remember, because Rafa big football, wasn't he?
Yeah, amazing. I mean, that. Listen, it's not because of those personal experiences that I had with Rafa that I would have him back. I just know how committed he was to our football club, and I know about the project that he wanted to set in motion, and he believed under Ashley that he was going to get that opportunity. He was led down that particular path, whether that was by Ashley or by Charnley or a combination of both. But sadly, it never happened. Look, guys, we've only got 10 minutes left, so I want to whiz through a couple more questions. Jack Chater says, would you rather the new owners invested in the academy and training ground or the playing squad? Me personally, I would like all 3, and I think we'll be capable of that.
I agree.
All of the above. Yeah. It has to be all of the above.
Yeah, it's not a yes or no. It's not an if or and. It's got to. It's to turn your
all of the above.
Special,
Yeah. Lee Ellison, Jay Felix is an unbelievable talent. Athletic Real Madrid would love to see us forget about Kane's, etc., and buy young, hungry players. I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't disagree with that. I think he's right, but I think you also need experience. I think another thing about Rafa potentially coming back is the squad hasn't changed a great deal. When he walked into that dressing room, there's a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah.
I remember and people know inside out.
Yeah, he took us to the training ground, and he said to us, how do you think the training went, and who was the laziest player? And we said, we didn't think John Joe Shelby was doing much. And he goes, yeah, John Joe's on his holidays already, and there was still 1 game to go. And he told us that, and straight away we thought, Shelby's gone. But then played Fulham, and he made him captain. So that's Rafa, You just never knew with him, And that's what he's like, and he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant with the man management.
Colin Wilson, thanks for joining us. He says, hi lads, any thoughts on the Saudis buying the Premier League TV rights? Yeah, that was a bit of a turn up for the books, and certainly puts the cat amongst the pigeons as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've said to you before, though, if Saudi are all in on this, and this was a doubt, Steve would tell you, Steve, that we were connected to somebody through the whole stuff we did with ZG, who helped Saudi involvement from day one about whether they were all in or not. And we've never really talked about it. There's no point in talking about it because I genuinely believe they're all in now. And I think if they're all in, they're going to be all in. And this is something that they would be interested in doing. And not for geopolitical reasons. It's just because we want it all. That's the Arab mentality.
Yeah.
They want it all. That's why I've got 10 million Mustangs going past on the balcony,
We've had a question from Carl Roberts. I'm loving your JPEG, mate, your profile picture. Boba Fett, I'm a big Star Wars fan myself. Would you consider carrying on these streams each Friday, even if the takeover goes through? We've really enjoyed the insight over the past few weeks. I'm sure we will. It cost us an hour of our time, and we thoroughly enjoy doing it. And nice to have Steve on as well tonight. Just to have a little bit of a different opinion as well. It's great. Doug Hall, not the Doug Hall. He says, lads, why do you think the PM have only northern teams playing at neutral grounds? I think he means the Premier League. Why do you think that is? It is a bit of a strange one.
Well, again, from what I understand, that list of games that they want moved is all about police advice. Now, whether that's regional police forces believe they can't deal with what they may have to deal with, I don't know, because like I said to you before, I've not looked at it properly yet. I've been looking at other bits and bobs today. So there'll be a reasoning behind it, I would have thought. I don't think it's haphazard or deliberate or anything like that. But the thing that worries me about it is the minute you start having games played under different conditions, there's a sports lawyer sitting in a room rubbing his hands somewhere. That if somebody gets relegated, they turn around and say, that wasn't a legitimate season because you did X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And that's my concern. That's my concern with it.
Al G says, if the takeover goes through, do you keep Lascelles? I've heard mixed things about him from fans, but I personally think he could be the rock of a top-class team. Steve, would you keep Lascelles?
Yeah, I like Lascelles. I you know, in the early days, I'd probably keep most of the players that we've got. You know, I think Lascelles is a captain. I think he's a leader. I think sometimes he can lose it in a game. He can drift off. He's not his confidence, but his concentration can let him down at times. But find me a centre half who doesn't go like that when things aren't going quite right, or you're under pressure, or you're playing a particular formation that doesn't quite suit you. Lascelles is a leader. I like Lascelles, and I would keep him certainly.
Josh Blakey says this is Ashley's big moment. He always said he would sell it to someone who could take it forward. No one believed it, but that's how he'll play it, and all his media chums will lap it up. Derek Sharp is asking a new article about the FA writing letter to Saudi Sports. We covered it earlier, Derek, and we know about it, but we aren't concerned. It'll be a little rap on the knuckles, we think. Ferry Hill Mags, great show, chaps. Thanks, mate. Thanks for joining us again. John B. Now, listen, we've already had Neil's take on this tea party, Steve. Who would you take to a tea party? What we'll ask you is which Newcastle players or celebrities or whatever would you take to a tea party? 3 people you can take. Can be anybody you want.
Oh, dear me. Do they have to be Newcastle?
No, it can be anybody. It can be celebrities. It can be stars. Right. They can be dead or alive.
Oh, right. Oh, dead, right? Aye. Well, all the dead are alive. You know how I love to sit round a table with and talk about football is Ian Wright. Right. I think Ian Wright is absolutely. It would be a laugh a minute because he's just that sort of personality. You know, I'd love that. I would probably, you know, who else? If it was a star and a celebrity, but it was somebody, whether it end up really well, you know, whether I would just be an awe, would be Bruce Springsteen, you know, an absolute idol, someone I absolutely love. And I'd also like to have Robert De Niro there. I think Robert De Niro, because he's a character and he's you know, he's done everything, he's played all sorts of different roles, and I'd love to talk to De Niro. Whether he would answer as an Italian, like he spent most of the time in Godfather 2 talking, I don't know. But De Niro, for me, you know, he's probably my favourite actor.
Great stuff. Fungo Freddy says, right, he's away for a case of dogs. Thanks for the entertainment, lads. The crack's been great. Alex Colhoun says, do you think, guys, we will hear if the buyers have been given the green light from the Premier League, or will the next thing we hear be the official announcement? It'll be the official announcement, lads, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. Danielle says, therapy's complete. See you next week, Michio. So she's happy. Everyone seems to be happy. Al G says, great stuff again, Steve. Thanks for the entertainment. Loved it. So, and Spenny Mag says, thanks, guys. Just like me and mate before and after the match, which I missed, which is nice, which is the way we wanted it.
Exactly what it should be. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, lads, it's been an absolute pleasure. Look forward to getting you back on next week if you're up for it, Steve. And
if the pub's haven't opened by then, yeah, definitely.
Well, that's it. Well, hopefully the takeover will be either done or will be a step closer. Look, it's always a gamble. Let's see what happens on the 1st of June, Mitch. Fingers crossed. And by the way, somebody did ask about that 1st of June. Where did that date come from, Mitch?
Originally, the first person to mention it was Neil Custis in The Sun. And I sort of like looked at it and thought, you're just looking at Ramadan, you're looking at Eid ending, because Eid in Saudi usually goes on a lot longer than Eid here in the UAE. So Eid will just be finishing now in Saudi. And that's the first Monday after Eid. And so I was originally like, Eid doesn't matter. And the more I think about it, actually, I'm wondering whether that is actually the reason for it. That's where it's come from. That was the first person to mention it was Neil Custis in The Sun. And the first thing I did was look at the calendar and try and work out, well, where have you got that date from? And like I say, Eid holidays in Saudi tend to go on forever. Eid holiday here in the UAE ended this week, but Saudi finished yesterday. So they'll be back at work Sunday.
If anyone's going to get any grief on the 1st of June, it's Neil Custis, care of the Sun newspaper.
Not me.
Not Neil Mitchell. Right, lads, have a good weekend. Stay safe. Thanks for joining us. Take care, lads.
Cheers, lads.
Bye. Great to have the lads on. Back tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Now, I'm coming back at 2 o'clock tomorrow, and the reason being, Newcastle United are showing the Aston Villa 6-0 game tomorrow, so I thought best come on early. So me and Lee Clark are on at 2 o'clock tomorrow. But if you stay with us, and anyone's interested in listening to Brian Cockrell, the tax man, who was on Donald McIntyre, etc., I'm going to be doing an interview with him in 5 minutes back on the YouTube channel. So I'm going to do an hour with him, a Q&A with him, which should be very interesting. So thanks for joining us on this one. If you want a little bit of Brian Cockrell, stay with us at 7. If you want the football, I will be back at 2 o'clock, the league clock tomorrow. Good night. God bless. I wish you well.